Hey, greetings. Good morning, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf with Outspoken and Daily Clout, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Cory Hillis. Welcome, Mr. Hillis.
Thank you so much for having me today.
It's my pleasure. So, Cory Hillis is president of EMF Solutions, Inc. He's a pioneering holistic doctor and certified EMF specialist and trainer with decades of experience in protecting and healing people from the harmful effects of electromagnetic fields, EMF, Wi-Fi, Starlink, and other technological interferences. As the principal inventor and lead designer of EMF Solutions, Cory has developed groundbreaking methodologies that directly address the unseen dangers affecting humans' health. Cory's journey began with his own battle against a debilitating health condition, one that conventional treatments couldn't resolve. Determined to find answers, he immersed himself in holistic healing and successfully reclaimed his health. However, as a practicing holistic doctor, he noticed a glaring problem: the massive and overlooked impact of EMFs on his patients' well-being. This revelation led Cory to dive deep into research and innovation, ultimately creating the first truly comprehensive solutions to neutralize the damaging effects of EMF exposure. So this is Mr. Hillis's bio. It's not my own independent evaluation. I'm not qualified to evaluate. The results were undeniable, sparking overwhelming demand and leading Cory to dedicate himself exclusively to this mission. Now Cory is recognized as a leading authority in EMF remediation, with thousands of testimonials proving the effectiveness of his work. His passion for healing, paired with his scientific approach, has built a thriving movement, one fueled solely by word-of-mouth success. In addition to his expertise in EMF protection, Cory holds certifications in quantum reflex analysis, clinical nutrition and weight management, and has trained doctors, chiropractors, and health professionals in advanced holistic techniques for years. His mission is clear: to educate and empower individuals in reclaiming their health from the silent threats of modern technology. So there you are. Let's just jump right in. And we've already got plenty of people watching, even though it's early in the morning. What was the do you mind sharing with us what was the illness that you had, and how did you heal yourself?
I didn't hear the question. What was the what?
What was the illness that you had, and
Oh,
how did you heal yourself?
so I had a mystery illness, like a lot of people's illnesses. They go to doctors and the doctors just treat symptoms. They couldn't peg me with one thing. I was very frustrated because they didn't really try to find out what the heck was wrong with me. They
What
just
were your
messed
symptoms?
me.
Sorry to interrupt, but what were your symptoms?
Yeah. So I had terrible fatigue. I had super bloaty stomach and whatnot. I had serious back problems. They came out of nowhere for no reason. And then I would wake up in the middle of the night. My heart's racing at 150 beats a minute. Don't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Right.
I had like such severe, it hurt. It was like hard to breathe, and my heart didn't work right. It's hard to explain, but nobody could figure out what the heck this set of symptoms was. And I finally saw, I saw every doctor known to man. I didn't see a gynecologist or a proctologist, but I saw all the rest of them, and over, neurologists, neurosurgeons, you name it. And nobody could come up with anything. They sent me to the pain doctor or the psychologist or psychiatrist. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me right now. So I kept looking, eventually started going to all the holistic people too. And a chiropractor that did quantum reflex analysis started getting me better after a really hard couple of years, not just hard pain wise, but scary. Every day was scary for me.
I'm sure.
I had to be on a
And what
prescription bed.
can I just jump in, please? What is quantum reflex analysis?
It's something that a company called Premier Research Labs, who I eventually worked for, because I called them up and said, can I please, help people the way you guys are? But it's a healing modality that involves a lot of things. So it uses muscle testing, which is similar to applied kinesiology, for those who know that. It's clearing emotional traumas, physical traumas that affect areas of your body and sedate energy flow so that, you can heal yourself better. Involves nutrition. So I was a clinical nutritionist, basically. And some other things too. So it really encompasses a lot of different things. It's not just kind of one round peg and one round hole kind of thing, but that's some of the things that it does.
Okay. So then what happened?
So I started seeing him, started getting better, worked for them, Premier Research Labs, was training other practitioners how to do QRA.
Mhm.
And then I went out on my own to become a practitioner myself. And met my wife. She was a practitioner, not a medical doctor, but a holistic practitioner. And in our journey, we realized if we don't address the invisible elephant in the room, this radiation that's affecting people so bad, it's very hard to address their health issues,
Right.
especially, people like Dr. Klinghart's kind of the world renowned Lyme disease guy. He says if you don't address EMFs while you're like taking my program and seeing me, don't even waste your time. Don't even come here.
Wow.
So in the holistic world, we know about this. In the white lab coat medical world, they just kind of don't, because it's not part of that vernacular yet. But we knew that we had to address this elephant in the room. We had some good products or okay products, but
Cory, sorry, Mr. Hillis, you're, I'm missing kind of a transition. How did you know? Like you're doing something completely different involving a chiropractic modality, and then you and your wife began thinking about EMFs. What was the reason for that transition?
well, because through muscle testing, you
Mhm.
can test people when they start to get away from EMFs or fix the EMFs, one or the other, and we couldn't really fix them all the way yet. Um, they test better, they feel better. So
Wow.
our own clients, we were noticing all of this within our own clients, and the holistic community would also notice this, and it was a well-known thing.
Right.
So
So, Mr. Hillis, were you advising your chiropractic clients to handle their EMF exposure while you were treating them with this other modality? Is that what?
absolutely.
Okay.
So we had other products from other companies. The problem was, for instance, the cell phone is a major culprit of EMF radiation for people, and it's getting worse by the year. Well, we had the best product we could find. It took 3 chips on it, and it for $90 a piece, and it still wasn't all the way remediated. It was still affecting people.
So I'm
So I
sorry
said,
to keep interrupting, but when you introduce a new term, can you just explain what you mean? Okay, because like treat me like I'm in sixth grade. I don't know anything. Okay, so what does it mean that the cell phones are getting worse every year, and what do you mean by chips?
more amount of radiation that's having greater harmful effects on us.
Okay, thank you very much. And what are chips? When you say you
These
introduce
were
three
these were
chips,
little.
what does that mean?
It was a little disc or a chip that you put on your phone with material in it that was supposed to remediate the effects of
I see.
EMFs.
Okay, thank
And
you.
so, 3 of them we were using muscle testing, and so were all of our colleagues. And I knew a lot because I had trained practitioners for so long. I knew hundreds, and so we all like collectively said, "Well, 3 is still not doing the job."
Wow.
And very sensitive people. Most people don't feel their cell phones.
Right.
But there's a bunch of people out there that are really sensitive that can really feel the cell phones. And when
Yeah,
you
I
fix
feel
it, they
it.
were like, "Thank you so much," and
Yeah.
their symptoms go away.
Wow. And where were you finding these chips, or how were you producing them?
Well, I don't want to like name companies to say they weren't making a perfect product or whatever, so I don't like dissing anybody. But there were a lot of companies out there making them. We found what we thought was the absolute best one that tested the strongest, and it
Mhm.
still took 3 to not quite do the job.
Got it. Well, what was the
When
one that I'm sure you can say which one worked, right?
because it didn't work, because 3 of them still didn't do the job. I just don't like bashing anybody.
I
But when
see.
I couldn't fix it, I decided, okay, I need to do this myself somehow
I
because
see.
this isn't being done. So
So
I
you
started
manufactured a different chip? Is that what you're saying?
correct. So I
Okay.
started studying how are EMFs, how are these products working? How are EMFs affecting people? And in my studies, when I started trying to figure this out in the very beginning, I ran across some great research, but I noticed that nobody, including the companies, could explain to you how the EMF is affecting humans.
Right.
So they had there's negative ions, and there's grounding, and there's blocking, and there's all these, there's like 9 different ways, if not 10 or 11, that people are attempting to fix the radiation problem,
Mhm.
because that's what this stuff is radiation. But nobody could tell you how it was hurting you, because let me take a step back. Ionic radiation is like an X-ray.
Mhm.
Okay, an X-ray. It took us 50 years. I say us like humans. It took humans 50 years playing with this stuff to discover that hey, X-rays are ripping electrons off of atoms and causing DNA damage.
Oh,
So it
wow.
took us a long time to figure that out. Once we figured it out, now you only get an X-ray when you need one, like
Right.
medically. There used to be X-rays to put your foot in to measure your arch and do different things. That all went away. We just do it when we need, like, make sure you're not carrying a gun through the airport, or you got a health concern and you need an X-ray. So we're going to give you a little DNA damage, but that's okay because you have an important reason to do that.
Right.
You have an important medical reason. So it was the lower frequency radiation called non-ionic radiation, still billions of waves a second compared to X-rays, which are many trillions of waves a second. I can get into that frequency, what that means. They assumed because it didn't harm you the same way as an X-ray, that it must be harmless, just like they assumed in X-rays in the beginning,
Right.
And
Right.
so we just went about building the technology and adding more to the world and adding more to the world. Meanwhile,
Excuse
there's a lot
me,
of people with
sorry to
symptoms.
keep interrupting, but these are a lot of new concepts for me. So when you're talking about this form of radiation, are you talking about the radiation that's in the cell phone, for instance, or in the computer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go
So
ahead.
cell phones, cell towers, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all that stuff. If you have really big power lines, that's a very low frequency. But if you have the extra large power lines, you're living under that.
Mhm.
That's also radiation, and it also has the same effect, just takes more of it. The
Mhm.
higher the frequency we've found, that generally the more, generally, because there's other factors, generally the more harmful it can be. And
Mhm.
so power lines are 60 waves per second or hertz frequency. So it takes a lot of that. In 5G, the new stuff that comes out, it goes up to 100 billion waves a second.
Oh my gosh.
So the frequencies are much, much higher. And I can explain that. But that means it creates more subatomic chaos, more malfunctions in our cells, and leads to more symptoms.
Leads to more symptoms, is that what you said?
Yes.
And have those versions, I mean, one of the things that really struck me when I interviewed someone from the only EMF nonprofit I've ever found, I've forgotten their name right now, but you probably know it.
Is it the Bio Initiative?
No, I guess there are more of them now, but
There are.
I'll track
That's
it
the
down.
big
But anyway, they lobby against EMF in Washington, and they said that these forms of radiation have never been scientifically proven safe for humans. Is that your experience as well?
Of course. As a matter of fact, there's over 10,000 studies and papers, and I've heard there's over 20,000 if you count the military. It's rumor because I can't see them. But there's so much evidence here. It's like the smoking industry. There's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of reason why to sweep it under the rug, and you're not going to hear about it in the news. But there's so much ridiculous amount of evidence, and I can go one study after another, paid for by state governments, our federal government, European Union. I can name them all. You can go look at them and go, why are they not telling us about this stuff?
Wow. Okay. So never been proven safe, tons of money from the telecom industry, right? Mostly, and from Silicon Valley, I imagine, to prevent people from being aware of these dangers. And I'm also aware that EMF towers, there was a bill that, it was shocking, prevented local jurisdictions or local townships from stopping telecom companies from erecting radiation emitting towers on schools and post offices and old folks' homes, like right in the middle of where vulnerable people are. And that a lot of communities have, I'm thinking of Elk Grove, California specifically, they've had a lot of difficulty just saying to the federal government, we're going to ban this. And also the bill, I read it, gave AT&T specifically, but these manufacturers of these towers, the ability to put them on rooftops underneath market rates. In other words, the town couldn't even charge market rates for the appropriation of their airspace above the post office or above the school. And is that the kind of thing you're talking about, or is that a different form of radiation?
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The only thing I could add to what you said, not only do we not prove it's safe for humans, because that's hard to do,
Mhm.
because to prove it's safe for humans, there was one study came out recently saying it's safe for humans because 5G is not altering these genes.
Mm.
Well, your human cell has over 20,000 functions.
Oh, wow.
Okay. If you test one of them or 10 of them, you didn't prove that it doesn't hurt humans. You only proved it didn't hurt that part of the cell in that way, right?
Right.
There are 10,000 studies proving it is harmful. It's damaging DNA. And I believe, not believe, but like kind of can put my hand on the Bible too, we're the first to figure out how the EMF is actually causing the damage inside of your cell, which snowballs into the chronic fatigue, headaches, tumors, cancer, immune system problems, reproductive suppression. The list goes on and on and on. So all of that stuff can come from this. And some of the hardest work discovered how EMFs are hurting you came around before we did. We just found the missing link of how this little lower frequency EMF is actually causing what we call voltage gated calcium channel malfunction inside of your cells, which snowballs into all of the problems that we get.
Oh, wow. So when you say we found it, who are you talking about? And how did you find it?
Me being the head researcher of it and basically EMF solutions.
Oh, I see. So your new company that you started to address this issue.
So we figured this out. We started making products. We started just doing it for our own clients, me and my wife. And we got such a good response. When we fix a house, we get a testimonial about half the time. And we're not fixing any medical conditions. We're just removing this giant stress out of your life.
Right.
And that's how often we get a testimonial for clients who are sicker, like coming from practitioner types to us. Their testimonial is more like 2/3, 3/4 of the time we get a testimonial. It's such a big shift just to fix the EMFs.
Just to fix the EMFs. Wow. So there are other EMF product companies out there. I know because I spent $400 on a little kind of pendant that's supposed to protect you from EMFs. And my husband was like, are you insane? Like this is voodoo, how do you know this is going to work? And I have no evidence that it worked, but there are a lot of EMF companies out there, but you're saying that you've actually found the mechanism that causes the stress or damage to human beings. And so your products are developed or designed to address that. Is that your competitive advantage?
Correct. It's like being a mechanic and knowing the car's not working. And then you just like pointing to parts, replace that, fix that, try to fix that. That's insane. You want to know what's broken.
Yeah.
And that's what you fix.
Right.
And so in the EMF,
that's good news. Sorry, go ahead.
In the EMF world, blocking EMFs is not an option for a couple of reasons. One, it usually makes it worse for you because blocking is just reflecting it into another direction.
But away from your house, perhaps, right?
Well, it depends. So if I can go example by example and explain that. But blocking usually makes it worse. But also if you block it, your cell phone wouldn't work anymore. Your Wi-Fi wouldn't work anymore. You wouldn't even get FM radio in your house anymore. Like you need the EMF for the technology.
But I mean, can I jump in there, Mr. Hillis? Some people I know, and I appreciate them and think it's smart, don't use their cell phones in that way, in their homes. They use an Ethernet cable, and they just turn on the computer when they need the computer and don't, have the Wi-Fi going all the time around them.
That would have been smart years ago, but the amount of radiation from cell towers, scatter poles, Starlink, and all this stuff, you can turn everything off in your house and you're getting destroyed by this radiation. There's so much radiation now. It's unbelievable. So you can't run and hide from it anymore. That day is over. You are surrounded by a sea of it. I mean, try to shut off all your stuff. How many Wi-Fis alone can you see on your computer that you can log into right now?
Totally. No, you're totally right. I mean, we live in the middle of the country, and it used to be one of the few places I felt not bothered by the signal because I'm sensitive to it. And then I came to our country house one day and I'm like, something's wrong. There's like a high-pitched whine. I don't know if people describe that. And I couldn't sleep well. And I just felt that stress of the, Wi-Fi signal. And I'm sure that there's a smart meter or a new tower up, somewhere in the area. I haven't tracked it down yet, but what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, I know you're right, because I don't even know how to begin to remediate this stuff coming at us from a source that I can't identify. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the country, rural areas are getting much, much worse, sometimes worse than the suburbs or the city.
Oh my gosh.
Because you don't have internet and much out there. The cell towers, when they do build them, they're much taller and higher, and they're able to go, instead of like a city cell tower, which could go like, it's meant to go like a half a mile or a mile or something. There's too many buildings in the way. To make it strong, it's useless because the radiation is going to get absorbed in the buildings and not make it very far.
Right.
So in the country, they put them up high, and they could go 25 to 50 miles sometimes. So they make them very strong. So if you're like a half a mile from one of those, you could be getting way more than somebody in the city, not to mention the Starlink and the others now coming up behind them. So Starlink is giving you radiation internet from 350 miles above your head. And so out in the country, and by the way, I'm not against any of this technology. It just needs to be addressed and fixed.
Right.
I believe this is a problem we can have, like, and remediate it.
Right.
So I just held up my phone. I was one of the first to get 5G phones, but that's because I have experiments on human cells showing that what happens to human cells is taken care of by our products with a perfect probability function. I trust our stuff. But anyway, the country is probably getting much worse because of that, because what happens is you get a satellite dish from Starlink, and Starlink's shooting like instead of a radiation that's irradiating equally all around, it's shooting a purposeful laser beam of radiation to that dish. Now it's not perfect, doesn't hit the dish perfect, but it hits that area. So that whole area around that dish is going to be majorly affected. So if you get Starlink and you don't address it, I think you're crazy, because you're going to get majorly affected by this, not knowing the invisible elephant sitting in your room right now.
Good.
And so that's what's making the countryside a lot worse,
That
between the
is
cell towers
horrible.
and the big cell towers in outer space.
This is so horrible. It's like a war on humanity. I know they want to build a 150-foot cell tower about 3/4 of a mile away from us. And I was trying to tell myself, well, that's far enough away so it won't really cause us damage. But from what you're saying, it isn't, far enough away. And you're quite right. If they want a variance to make it much taller, then it should be according to our local regulations. This is so bad, Mr. Hillis. So you're getting very specific, good questions. Marilyn Mooney asks, what do you think about government getting rid of lead paint, which is one thing that protects from EMF? Now they sell pricey paint that is supposed to protect from EMF. That is really interesting. There was a big push to get rid of lead paint, and lead paint could protect us theoretically, right? Even though your toddler shouldn't eat the paint chips.
Yeah, but I don't want my kid eating lead paint. And protecting your house with paint, because you can go buy very expensive paint, way more expensive than our products, and doesn't work when ours do. But here's why painting your house, you can put paint, you can put the sheets on the windows, the tint on the windows to block stuff from coming in. It sounds like a great idea, but you're not probably, well, let's just back up a step. If it blocked everything coming in, great. But unless you shut all your electricity down, you don't have a cell phone, you don't have a router, you don't have even electricity, because electricity, everything electric is an EMF. Then all the EMFs in the house stay in the house, and it will affect you worse. So the radiation can't escape. Right now, electricity doesn't affect us very much. It affects us, but not very much, because it's a really long wave. All photons are traveling light speed. This is EMFs. Okay, they all travel light speed. When they only oscillate 60 times a second traveling light speed, the wave is really long. When the wave's really long, almost all the electricity that you make in your house escapes the house and goes somewhere else.
Okay.
Now, if you block the walls from EMFs, all that electricity would bounce around there until it got absorbed in something.
God, okay. Well, that's
absorbed radiation is what's causing our problems, and it's like a microwave oven. So let me explain. Microwave oven is 2.45 to 2.5 billion waves a second frequency, or gigahertz. Okay. Your router is 2.45 to 2.5 billion waves a second, or gigahertz. Identical. So your router is basically a microwave oven without the walls on it. So your microwave oven heats food because The radiation bounces around in there until it gets absorbed in something, shakes and vibrates the molecules.
So we're cooking our brains, we're cooking our reproductive systems.
What's that?
We're cooking our brains, we're cooking our reproductive systems by the radiation bouncing around our house. Sorry?
Absolutely. I'll tell you something scary that nobody knows about their cell phones.
Ugh.
The FCC has a safety guideline called the SAR rating. That's, what's the first word? Standard absorption rate. It's basically how much radiation is being absorbed in your head. Okay. So when I'm on the phone, how much radiation is absorbed in my head? You can see how much radiation is absorbed in your head because we've done these experiments too, showing a thermal imaging camera. Your head heats up on this side.
Yeah. You can feel it.
As you're on the phone, longer on the phone.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't heat up from like the heat of a radiator that warms you. It heats up because radiation, microwave radiation, is going in your head and it's shaking and vibrating molecules, just like your microwave oven heats your food.
Oh my
and
God.
that's heating your head.
Oh my God. That makes
And
perfect
the thing
sense.
is, the FCC says there's an acceptable level of how much that's happening inside of your head, which is insane to me.
That's madness.
And they didn't pick a level based on anything. They just picked a level, like 1.2, blah, blah, blah. And here's the kicker on that. Not only is the FCC's level, in my opinion, and all like the guests you had on before opinion, I'm sure, is way higher than all the studies say is safe. All phones go over that level anyway. So when you sign your contract, it says in your contract, if you touch your phone, basically get within a certain like little bit of your phone, basically touching it, of course, then you will exceed the FCC's safety guidelines for radiation. So they all have, it's mandatory. They all have to, by law, they have to admit that to you.
Wow.
It's in the contract in the small print. Nobody's ever going to read that.
Wow, that's shocking. I always felt like that moment when we had Ethernet cables and Blackberries, was like the best of technology without some of the horrible things that happened. I'd really like to go back to that kind of technology.
You can.
But
I believe you can have almost everything. There's very few things I say don't get. Cell phones are fixable. I totally believe that. All of our tests show that. Like I've said, we've tested many different things. We did the thermal imaging test. You put a phone against the head, it heats up in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Same person does it with our product on there.
Yeah.
You see almost no change to no change for 10 minutes, depending on the subject.
Amazing. Well, we're getting so many great questions. Forgive me for going right to them. Do we know about the effects of millimeter wave machines that screen passengers at the airport? That's a good question. What's your view of that?
We're talking about the X-ray machines in the airport?
Millimeter wave. Maybe that's the same thing. The
millimeter wave just means a small wave. So millimeter wave starts in the billions of waves a second. The X-ray machines are trillions of waves a second.
Mm-hmm.
So they're also millimeter waves, but smaller than that. You know what I mean? They're like fractions of millimeters. So that's a term usually used for 5G, the 5th generation of frequencies that came out that are now going like high up into the billions. Used to be hundreds of millions, up to a billion. 4G was going to 5 gigahertz or 5 billion waves a second. And now the 5G is going way higher. Starlink owns the highest that I know of commercially. They have ground stations that put 100 billion waves a second frequencies up to the satellites, and the satellites send 70 billion waves a second down.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So what's the bottom line? Should people worry about the millimeter wave machines, or do we have bigger problems essentially?
Yeah, much bigger problems than that.
Okay. Green Shoot says, do you think orgonite can help harmonize them? I don't know what that means, but you might.
So there's a lot of products out there. So we use natural materials.
Mm-hmm.
And orgonite, I believe, if I'm not mixing up my terms, is when you just put stuff in resin. And if I'm not mixing up orgonite with one of the other ones. Anyway, I've never found one natural material that always works. Never found it.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to my website, we found a way to test natural materials to find out the actual scientific properties in there. And so when we put them in our products, there's some science behind it, and it's actually doing something. There is no, there's black tourmaline and all these things that people say, oh, this fixes EMS. I could take red jasper. I could take almost any crystal, like many, many crystals have certain properties about 1% of the time. So I have to test a whole lot of it and pick out the good stuff. And the
Right.
reason I think black tourmaline and things like that got a reputation for fixing EMFs is this is my guess. I don't know, because it doesn't work most of the time, or it works a little tiny bit.
Hmm.
It's because somebody must have found a whole bunch of some kind of crystal,
Hmm.
and that like side of the mountain, it all worked. They're like, oh wow, black tourmaline
Right.
works to fix EMFs. But
Right.
then you go to the next mountain, and over here it doesn't work. But
I see.
that just stuck as a thing, and nobody tests it, and that's the end.
Okay, gotcha. Joseph Hoover says the conclusion, if that cell phones were safe, was made because they suppressed and removed the work from those who reported it was dangerous to overall consensus. The FCC is corrupt. They're in charge of all communications. I know that's true. And Michael Gong says, can we talk about smart meters? So we've talked about them a little bit, but please say more about smart meters. And just before you begin, I just wanted to share, I got a notification that they're going to change the meter on a house that we have to a smart meter. And I saw online that some people have put a chain and a lock on their old-fashioned meters so that the energy company can't change it to a smart meter. Tell us about smart meters and what we can do to protect ourselves, please.
You have to be careful with the chain and lock. There's a lot of laws that say you can't do that. If you block the ability for them to get to your meter, then technically there's depends on the state. There's some serious penalties sometimes, so you have to be careful doing that.
Wow, thank you.
You're better off calling the company. Now, you're better off fixing it with our products. Our products work. I have a smart meter. I didn't get rid of it, but if I wanted to, which I don't need to, and I have a 5-year-old daughter, doesn't sleep that terribly far from it, I am not worried about it because I've proven our products to work. If we ever get into those experiments, I can tell you some of those. But a smart meter is basically a Wi-Fi router-ish thing that's on your meter that sends a signal from that location off to the next house, usually, that picks up that data, includes its own data about energy use, then sends it off to the next house, and so on. It goes to the neighborhood, then up to a satellite, and then they get that constant feedback of what everybody's energy use is. By the way, the guy that, and I know this from a relative, his relative in Canada makes our resin. He said, that's my relative. I won't sell him out. He said he's so rich, the guy who invented the smart meter, but he now lives in that place in Virginia where there's thousands of square miles that you're not allowed to have cell towers.
Wow. Wow.
He has to live there because he's so sensitive to EMFs now.
Wow.
So he didn't think they were harmful either.
Wow.
You have a genius IQ relative that you just taught as you're a physicist or electrical engineer. Hey, it doesn't harm you. So they just go out and make everything you can. They're not biologists. They're not biochemists. If you marry the two disciplines,
right,
they could figure out what we did. They could test what we did. They could see, holy cow, it's going on. But there's no money in proving that this is harmful. There's a lot of money in sweeping it under the rug.
Right.
So I want to say this. I don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I need proof. Like, I'm not just easily convinced of things. I think most of this, if not almost all of it, it's not trying to hurt people. I think it's just companies that have something that's legal to do. Scientists like Elon Musk's engineers and physicists, they don't think they're harm. My relative is like making this stuff. He's like top secret, crazy smart, making this stuff. They're just taught this is harmless.
Right.
And they just don't know what they're doing. So the consequences are there, but they don't get it.
Right. Doesn't it make sense, Mr. Hillis? Like, I keep seeing 3G, 4G, 5G, and I can feel the world changing with each of these escalations in, I guess, gigahertz. Is that what G stands for?
That's generation.
Generation. Oh, thank you.
Generation of frequencies, which includes low, medium, and now new higher frequencies than they've used before.
So where I'm going with that is, we evolved on a planet that had a certain resonance or electromagnetic field, and that was natural and aligned with our biology. And now telecom companies are turning it up and turning it up and turning it up. Isn't it intuitive that there's a point at which it's going to hurt or kill us? Like, we're not evolved to live with 5G, 6G, whatever comes next. Do you see what I mean? Or am I not understanding the science?
When I was a practitioner, there's nothing that I did, and I had a very successful practice because I learned from the best at Premier Research Labs, which has QRA, which is amazing. There's nothing that I did in one shot. I go to a house and I leave and I get so many testimonials. I don't think there's any stressor that you can have in your life, whether you're trying to cut out GMO and all these good things you can do, that is more like important than this. It's not just because of what I do, it's because of what we see. All my
Right.
reps, all my reps are people that got testimonials and called us and said, hey, can I work for you? But
Right.
this is a really big deal. I just want to tell people it's a really majorly important deal. I'm really excited to hopefully have you try the products, because I think you're going to be blown away, because it sounds like you're one of the sensitive ones.
Look,
And
and it's interesting. I've thought a lot about why I became more and more sensitive to electromagnetic fields as I got older. I travel a lot, and I wondered, for instance, if exposure to EMFs on airplanes just lowered my resistance or made me more sensitive. Let me tell you about my life with my husband and electromagnetic sensitivity. He loves these little plugins that emit a high-pitched resonance and keep mice away. And I can feel them. It's like the Princess and the Pea. And he always promises me he's removed all of them. Like when we go away, he puts them in. When we come back, he swears he removes them. And I'll come home and toss and turn and say, darling, there's something electromagnetic in the house that's bothering me. And he's like, you're imagining it. Like it's in your head. There's no evidence. And then sure enough, we'll find a plug-in that he's forgotten behind the fridge or under the, sink or whatever. So I'm just saying, like, I know this is real. I feel it. I feel it overwhelmingly. I remember being on a book tour and checking into a hotel, and I was tormented all night. And I checked in when it was dark. And in the morning, I saw that I was right next to an airport, and there was a huge amount of electromagnetic fields generated by planes taking off and landing, and by the cell tower, I guess, helps them. So all of that. I'm just sharing because it's a burden I carry to be so sure of this, because my loved ones are like, Mom, you're crazy. This is imaginary. And I'm like, no, feel it. And then they'll ask me to close my eyes, and then they'll hold up the cell phone on either side of my head. And, sometimes I get it wrong, but for sure. And then they'll say, ha, it's not real. And I'm like, no, it's real. So my point is, I believe you. And many people believe you. And I know you're saying you're not a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's weird. I'm just saying this. I'm not asking you to agree that all this 5G went up during lockdowns all over the world, that they invested, whoever they were, billions in this technology while we were, locked in our homes, unable to go to town meetings, to protest it, to resist it. I'm not asking you to answer this. It's not your job. But to me, there's so much overwhelming evidence that this stuff causes horrible problems. There are cancer clusters in schools that have EMF towers nearby or facilities. Doesn't this seem kind of like an assault on humanity? Or do you think it's just greedy companies?
I don't know. That's not my job, like you said. I think it's greedy companies mostly. I think it's and greedy. Making money is not always a bad thing. I'm not saying it's necessarily like bad, but I think a lot of people are just, they don't get it.
Right.
They don't know it's harmful. They don't know it's a problem.
Right.
And yeah, you said a bunch of things I have so many comments for, but nature's radiation is not like man-made radiation. When you walk outside, you get sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Sunshine includes some ultraviolet and some things that aren't great for you if you get overly exposed. But the effect we're talking about is not going to happen from going out in the sun, because that's unpolarized radiation.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the waves are in all directions. Like if one wave is oscillating like this when a photon hits you, another one's oscillating the other, like opposite direction, the same force. The forces cancel each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Man-made is not like that. So this radiation is shaking magnets. So when the forces hit you, it shakes and vibrates, like I said. And that is what's doing us the harm, that shaking and vibrating.
So that really makes sense, because young people especially, they complain of anxiety and depression, and
That's
this.
one of the symptoms that they talk about in the Bio Initiative. Bio Initiative has over 4,000 studies on that one not-for-profit website where nobody gets paid anything. Nobody has an agenda. Nobody's making money off of, they don't sell products, nothing like that. And they have over 4,000 studies, and they'll tell you absolutely anxiety is one of the things that they study. and they show. But let me just tell people who are listening, if you don't have symptoms, like maybe you have a little bit and you notice, it doesn't matter. You're getting DNA damage.
Right.
Like we've proven that, and we were not the first. We just repeated a study that had been done over and over and over on the calcium channel malfunction. When the calcium channels malfunction, it lets in too much or not enough, depending on the type of cell in your body. Too much calcium in your body. These carry double ions. It's called a double ion calcium molecule. When this charge gets out of whack in your cell, and I'm going to leave this to Dr. Martin Pall, who's a biochemist, and all the other guys who are like saying this stuff, the experts in this area. When this malfunctions, nitric oxide gets out of whack, free radicals damage happens, and DNA damage.
Pardon me, you said nitrous oxide. Isn't that an important substance for mood regulation?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why that shouldn't be out of balance. Again, I'm going to leave that to the biochemist. I'm just going to say, when you get all of that stuff happening, and there's a pile of other things besides what I just named. DNA damage is like kind of the end result. A lot, not a little bit. We're worried about DNA damage on an X-ray. Check this study out. The European Union paid 3 million or so euro for 12 different institutions across Europe. Not like one dude in his basement or something, like legitimate, like institutions across Europe. And they wanted to test how much was a cell phone causing radiation, DNA damage versus a chest X-ray. And the conclusion is almost like people won't even believe what I'm about to say. Their conclusion was, and they use the assay method where you can see like a strand breaks like smeared on DNA, these pictures. And they all unanimously agreed that 24 hours on a cell phone was equal to about 1,600 chest X-rays worth of DNA damage. So that's the European Union study. After that study came out, and this is a lot of years ago, this is not 5G. This is old school phones. This is over 10 years old study. After that came out, Brussels decided, Brussels has banned 5G from its city. And, certain places like schools and the French National Library doesn't allow Wi-Fi. And there's all these things happening, but it's also getting, swept under the rug and pushed off to the side. That's just one study on DNA damage. The first guy to study DNA damage was Dr. Henry Lai, L-A-I, I think you pronounce it or say his name, spell his name, out of University of Washington. In 1997 or 98, he did his first study on like a Motorola phone. So these were like first cell phones coming out, showed DNA damage. The powers that be tried to like silence him and shut him up and threaten him, saying, you're going to lose your tenure. You're not going to be, he's still doing studies today. If you read all the studies, he's got his name on lots of them. So he didn't slow down, but there's no money it's a lot of risk when you're a scientist and you're making these claims. So when you're on a bio initiative, and the people that belong to the bio initiative, that's the bioinitiative.org. If anybody wants to go there, if you add / conclusions to that, you'll have a summary of 1,800 studies on one page. It's amazing. But if you, I forget where I was going with that. Sorry, I went off topic.
Well, we were talking about all the ways that these energies affect us. And you were saying that the European Union found catastrophic damage and DNA damage. And you're saying even if you treat all the things you can treat, you're still going to get DNA damage. I believe that's what you were saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what does that mean?
DNA damage alone.
Sorry?
I know there's over 50 studies on DNA damage alone. So that's just one of the many symptoms. But I think Dr. Martin Pall, and I have an allergy right now, so I'm sucking on cough drops. I apologize for that, and I'm clearing my throat occasionally. But Dr. Martin Pall was one of the people who discovered that calcium channel malfunction was happening in cells. And medical doctors, naturopaths and all that, they know how important this function is. I'm not going to comment on like drugs and whatever, but there are very important calcium channel blocker drugs that a lot of people in this audience are going to say that they're on for health reasons. Okay. So when you have malfunctions in your calcium channels, this has health effects. And again, I'll leave that up to the biochemists and the medical doctors. I'll let them say it. as a company who manufactures products, I have to be very careful.
Mhm.
I don't, anybody with a testimonial that says medical condition or hints at it, I would never show the public. I have to be
Mhm.
very careful about
You're
what I
not
say.
allowed to. The
Our
FDA won't let
testimonials
you.
are I have thousands of testimonials. You probably got 100, 150 on the website, just examples to show people. But you're
Mhm.
only going to see the most common, which is better sleep, more energy. We call them head tensions,
Mhm.
get better, ringing in the ears. That's
Mhm.
one that's usually gone when you fix the EMF problem.
Wow.
So if you have that going on, you because I had it when I would only notice it when I was sleeping and it was really quiet
Yeah.
at night, and
Mhm.
I didn't notice the ringing, so to speak, or the buzzing or the whatever, until it would stop and start up again.
Right.
And I'm like, what is
Totally.
that? I would sit
I
around
love it.
listening for it again, and then it
Yeah.
would stop and start again real quick, and I'm like,
It's
no way.
maddening.
So for me, it was really subtle, but I could tell when I remediated my house. Maybe coincidence happened in the world, but I don't hear that ever anymore.
That's amazing. Can I change the subject to two other things I want to ask you about, or is there more you want to say
Go,
about?
go for it.
Okay. Well, before I change the subject, what's the practical implication of DNA damage? Like, do you see it in the next generation? Is this why teenagers look so ill and misshapen and pale, and or is it too early evolutionarily to see what DNA damage does to our offspring?
I mean, look, the common sense of it, and I'm not going to diagnose, but the common sense of it is you got a lot of DNA damage, aging. That's like DNA damage,
Right,
aging. If
right,
your DNA never changed, you wouldn't age.
right. I see what you're
We'd
saying.
just stay the same and young, and we'd be great. We wouldn't wear out, so to speak. So
Right,
it changes who you are from the cellular level, which ain't good. Now we get DNA
yeah,
damage every day from all kinds of things.
right.
Uh, we're supposed to, and we have great mechanisms to repair that DNA damage.
Hmm.
But if you get so much from one source, it
Hmm.
takes a lot of energy from your body to do that you
Right,
shouldn't have to do. So
right,
that's why one big reason is better sleep, more energy. That's our most common
right,
testimonials
right. And
because
yeah,
their cells have more energy. And
right,
after a couple of days, their body goes, man, I don't have to have all this energy reserved for this garbage. I'm just going to apply it towards digestion or immune system or
right,
just whatever
right.
your body needs.
That
And
makes
that's
sense.
the kind of testimonials we get from whatever their body's doing with that extra energy.
That makes sense. And knowing the FDA rules and how punitive they are to people who find solutions that are not part of big pharma, um, I know that you can't probably even publish describe testimonials of people who say my tumor shrank or my diabetes resolved or
Yeah, no, I can never know.
no.
I have
Okay,
some
so
cool ones I'll never show anybody. It's on my phone.
I understand. Well, human
Just get
beings
a text.
says
I'm like, awesome. Put it in the vault.
it's terrible.
If
Human
they
beings
hint at
says I
anything
can't
medical, I
sleep.
mean, like they just can't hint. If there's any hint, I'm like, nah, 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 nah. I can't
No,
go with
no,
that stuff.
it's so bad. You can't even say what's really happening to people with your products. It's so
Even
sensorious.
we even did a study that is not medical. Well, kind of, but we did a study that I just can't even show anybody. It's so cool, but like, well,
That's
you know,
horrible.
it would
Although
take two more
there's such
studies for me to show stuff. But even if I do sort of prove this thing, it's like it's just an area I'm not going to go to. Luckily I worked in the holistic field for years,
right.
and we had a great attorney working for our company that told us what to say, what not to say, and
Mm.
all that. So I'm programmed, so I get on shows and I know how not to put my foot in my mouth now.
I understand. It just makes me angry. I mean, it's a First Amendment issue to me, A. And B, well, let me just put in your ear to think about. There's such a thing as leaking on background, meaning someone somehow gets the study to a journalist and, no name, no source, and then the journalist can write about it, right? And I don't need to reveal my sources, but leaving that aside. So human being says, I can't sleep. I live near a cell tower about 150 yards away. Notice they just put another layer of white bars, escape New York City, and now this, Greenville, North Carolina. Does that resonate with you that the white bars can cause sleep disruptions?
So first of all, my wife and I fixed our condo in Mission Beach, California. One day we woke up, we couldn't sleep. We felt horrible. Like, what the heck's wrong with us? It took us a day or two to figure out. Our neighbor said, hey, they put this barrel up on a pole right outside your house. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Turns out that's the new 5G. This was years ago. It's like 8, 9 years
There's
ago.
a barrel on a pole that they put up outside our house in the country.
Yeah, well, that's probably a 5G barrel. You can text it to me. So when they put this up, we were wrecked. I put more of our same product down, fixed it. We stayed there month-to-month lease for another 3 years. Okay.
Wow.
I lived 10 yards from a 5G tower, 10 yards from my living room, 10 yards from my bedroom window, which was on the third floor. It almost looked straight at the thing. People would come over and say how calm and wonderful it felt in our house. And we just laugh. It was like if they only, knew that was a 5G tower. So when I left there, I came to South Carolina, Charleston. I bought a house less than 1 block from a 200-foot cell tower with over 50 antennas on it. Why? Am I insane? It's because I trust their products. I had to overfix the heck out of my house. That's a lot more product than like a normal house. It's just like normal house with one of these on their electric meter can protect you from things from the outside. That ain't the case in those examples. Eventually, I fixed the towers like where I used to live. So the 3 towers that were, within a couple blocks of me, because they put them every like 2 blocks. I fixed them all, and that was really nice. And it's still fixed today. I have practitioners that still are out there, reps, and they go and they test every now and then. And I have some really sensitive people. So living near a cell tower is not great. Okay.
Right.
But you can fix almost all of this stuff.
Okay. I believe you, and I'm going to order a bunch of products from your site. Sorry.
So if I don't need technology, I'm not going to get it. Like I'm personally not going to get solar. Solar has a lot of dirty electricity, brings a lot of certain kind of frequencies there. I don't need it. I'm not going to go get it. But I can't imagine living without this. So I'm definitely going to have, one of these, and I'm going to remediate it. So you can pick and choose the things that you think are really important. You can have your cake, I believe, and eat it too in this world. And I'm not trying to chase down the cell phone companies and call them evil, because I want to fix the phone itself. I want them to start making a phone that comes fixed. Now
that should be easy. There should be a way to integrate your technology into the cell phone.
Can I just on the back is kind of it's like this big. It's relatively thin, but it's like that. Now I can make it a lot smaller if I get inside next to the battery.
Sure.
But I have to put it outside, outside the case of the phone. So you have to have more of this material. So I'm looking forward to the day, and we're working with one company right now that makes some earbuds. So they're, knock on wood, we're in testing phase, but we'll fix them mostly. Hopefully close to 100%. We'll see how good we get it. But we're going to come out with those soon. And I really, of course, the biggie, I want a cell phone company to get involved with this.
Totally.
Just up one for concerned moms. Hey, you concerned about this?
Right.
Here's this for your children. And I think it would sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
I think there would be so much money that they could adopt this technology. They could admit it's harmful instead of in the small print, like in the big print. And then they, one company could own this like corner of the market, just make a ton of money. Maybe it's Apple, maybe it's Samsung. I don't know.
I got to jump in because human being has to go to work and they want your website info. We'll go back to the conversation after, but can you tell human being where to find your stuff?
Yes. For this show, I'm going to say emfhometest.com.
EMF home test.
EMF, like electromagnetic frequency, hometest.com. The reason I say go there is because it's a landing page that allows them to click on a free home test.
Okay.
If a rep's near you, they can literally come to your house and test it for free.
Love it.
No strings.
Okay, I'm jumping
not,
on.
they'll do a consultation with you. Also, no charge. Answer your questions, because there's probably have a lot of questions. Usually my reps are on the phone for like an hour with people because they got a lot of questions, and that's fine.
Love it. Okay, you got the information. We're not done though, Mr. Hillis. Is there more you want to say to human being before human being goes to work? He's saying thank you, or she.
On which one?
No, I mean, is that the answer for where's your website? That's the answer. Yeah,
emfhometest.com. That's where,
okay,
and from that landing page, you can easily go to the main website from there.
Wonderful. Now I have a final question. Okay. Well, I guess 2 final questions. And I know it's not your job to answer them. I just wonder about your thoughts. A lot of people are concerned about the spraying in the sky and geoengineering. And I know from my own research that some of the materials that are being sprayed in the sky include aluminum. Does an EMF interact with aluminum?
So great question, because EMFs metal amplifies the effect of EMFs. Okay.
You mean aluminum's metal amplifies the effect of EMFs?
So I'm just saying metal in general amplifies the effects of EMFs.
Okay.
Generally speaking. I haven't tested every single kind of metal, but it seems like all metals are pretty much affected, amplifying the effects of EMFs.
Okay.
The harder the material, the more this subatomic chaos, we call it. That's what, when absorbed radiation happens, because a photon smashes into something, gets absorbed. Sometimes it creates heat, sometimes it creates other things. So subatomic chaos is what we call it. This subatomic chaos travels through metal really well, a little less well through concrete, and a little less well through wood, and a little less well through the air. So anything metal seems to be a really big conductor. If you have metal in your body, like you got a metal rod, you really need to carry a product on you, probably more than one personal protection product, because we fix the house, we fix your router, we fix your phone, and we have a product that you carry on you. You know, I opt for this one. We have bands, but this little thing in my pocket mostly protects me everywhere I go from radiation.
Wow.
My daughter's 5. She's never gone out of the house without one of these bands on her wrist.
Wow.
She just knows it's part of life. Like, she just wears it. It looks kind of cute and cool and fun and almost like a, you know, cell phone watch or something. But that's just how we do it. We don't have to be the tinfoil hat wearing crazy people. I don't say crazy like it's a bad thing, but you know, it's convenient and easy, and it's important.
Quick question. Charlotte says emfhometest.com is not a valid address for her. Are you sure that's the correct URL?
You know, it is new, so let me make sure.
Okay, he's going to make sure, and then I'm going to talk while he checks.
emfhometest.com should be. Let's see.
She asks, is it emfhometesting.com?
No, emfhometest.com. I just pulled it up.
Okay, so try again, please.
Electromagnetic frequency, Edward Michael Frank, hometest.com.
Okay, so call it up, maybe clear your cookies. And maybe it says free home test.
EMS, or maybe they misspelled
it. Okay,
it.
Chicken Patty has the URL in the chat, emfhometest.com. Lauren wants to know scientifically, how does the device work? And we've only got 3 minutes. So can you answer that really fast? And then I want to ask you a final question, please.
So that's a long answer, how it works. So basically, I'd have to explain how EMFs are hurting you, and then explain how our products are addressing that domino, that second domino that we discovered is there.
Then can I ask you perhaps to come back in a future segment to give us more detail about that?
That's okay. I love talking about the technology and the specifics and the tech of it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, great. Then I do have a final question. It may sound weird, and I know it's not your job to answer, but I'm really wondering, I mean, various metals, you know, there are alumina in vaccines. I'm not going to go into what people claim to have found in the COVID shots because I haven't verified that. But, you know, we know that old school vaccines from the 80s and 90s and 2000s have alumina, and they used to have thimerosal as one of the ingredients, which is a metal, as I understand it.
Mercury.
So, sorry?
That's mercury. Yeah.
That's mercury, right. So my question is, okay, bear with me. I remember the world, right? I remember the world before about 2006, and the world before cell phones and before radiation towers. And it felt different. It felt more solid. It felt like the sun was gentler. There was more things. What?
Calm.
Calm. Yes. Things, you would lie on the grass and feel incredibly grounded. You'd feel the electromagnetic pull of the earth. Everything had a scent. You know, humans had kind of more of a force field that you could feel, you know, for good or bad. And the air, everything felt very dimensional, right? And now a lot of people have said this. I posted on X, you know, if your timeline shifted, when did it happen? And I thought people would think I was crazy, but a lot of people had answers to that. And a lot of people said the world feels different now. The air feels flatter. And honestly, Mr. Hillis, I've been to countries before it had 5G. Like I went to Ireland, Northern Ireland before 5G, and it felt like the old world, right? Yeah. It felt calm, it felt grounded, it felt dimensional. And now the last thing I'm going to say is, and then when 5G comes in, 4G and then 5G, it feels different. It's like changing a channel. Things are much flatter, less beautiful. Somehow the colors seem drained. Things don't smell as rich. I know people think I'm crazy, but I'm a careful observer of my world. So a friend of mine has a backyard in Harlem, and he created one of these devices that is a copper coil around a wooden pillar that pulls electromagnetic radiation into the earth and grounds it. And he does that for his beautiful greenhouse plants and kale and so on. But when I walked into his garden, I felt like I was stepping back into the prior world, like, rich and scents everywhere and dimensional, and the air didn't feel flat. So I know I'm describing things that are very vague, but I guess what I'm asking you is, does 5G alter reality, or does 5G alter our sense of reality?
Well, exactly. You perfectly described it. And it's funny, copper, we put a little bit of copper in our products because copper kind of takes what our product does and kind of adds a little extra to it. So there's important reasons why we do that. So your friend's onto like something there, which is beneficial. The exact thing you're describing is a super common testimonial. There's thousands of people out there already fixed their houses and their lives with our products that describe things becoming calm. I call it, when I fix a house and I go in a house to fix it and I feel the chaos, I feel the disruption, like on a very subtle level. And then you put our products on it and it just feels quiet. This is how I describe it. Everybody has like a different way of describing it. It feels quiet. It feels calm. All of a sudden I feel that I feel gravity on my heels now. Like after I fix a house, it's like, oh, that's what gravity feels like. Because it just feels like you're like on edge beforehand, and then you fix the house and it's like that. There's so many cool testimonials about bees flying in the house to get a piece of that when we fix it because they left the doors open.
Oh, that makes me cry.
I've had all kinds of crazy, neat things happen, but it's very much what you describe is what many, many, many people describe happening to their lives and their houses after they fix it.
Unbelievable. So I believe you, and that's very moving. And I'm also thinking that must be so good for the household pets, right? They can't, they're little and they must be so affected, and children. But I promise this is my final question. We've used up all of our time, but is the 5G then affecting reality or just our minds?
I mean, I don't know what reality means exactly, but it's affecting how you feel in it. That's for sure.
Right. And so that affects how you perceive.
World. It used to be you could walk on grass or on the beach or whatever, and you just feel so calm. I don't know what else the better word is for it. You just you feel centered, you feel calm, and now we're on edge all the time because this is a constant. You can't run from it. You could be climbing the Rocky Mountains and you're getting hit by Starlink. Like you're not away from it anymore. It's everywhere. Of course, it's more in certain locations when you're next to a cell tower and other things. And, when you're using a cell phone that's unprotected, you're getting more. There are a couple of things you can do, minimize this stuff. Don't sleep with it in your bed unless now I sleep with it right next to my bed because I have a chip on it. I trust it. It's proven on human cells. It feels great. And sensitive people say it works and all the rest. So, but anyway, if people go to that website, I really highly encourage them to sign up for a free home test because that's how you get a free consultation. All the questions you still have can get answered by a rep who's a certified EMF specialist. They're trained through a training program we have, and check it out yourself. We have a 60-day return policy.
Fantastic. I'm so grateful to you. So is our audience. A lot of people have tuned in. I'm going to let you go, but everyone go to emfhometest.com. I'm going to go right to it after we hang up. This is such a valuable presentation. It's depressing on the one hand. On the other, you're confirming a lot of things people sense. And thank God there's someone with a very serious scientific background and highly trained colleagues who can help us remediate and get that sense of calm back. Thank you, Cory Hillis. And do people find you on social media or should they just go to your website?
I think going to emfhometest.com, but we're also on, Instagram and Facebook. I'm not big. I let the other people handle that in the company, but we're there and we do make videos. There's a lot of cool little short videos to watch on the website and also on Instagram and Facebook.
We'll be reposting those. Thank you so much for spending time with us, Mr. Hillis. And I'm going to rush out and buy your products. I'll report back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For what you're doing. Bye-bye.